All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to Come to the Table. It is great to have you here today. As you notice here, we have some new intro music provided by the New Creation Praise Team here at United Presbyterian Church. And I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Mr. Mike Sims. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Yourself, Chris?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
It's what is it? It's 56 degrees right
Yep.
now and the sun is shining.
The sun is shining. We're not used to that around here. That's for sure. We'll take it.
Yeah, it is pretty nice.
It is the end of February though, so we're on the stretch run.
Yeah, that's true. And I felt like when I was a kid, growing up in Ohio, it was like pounded into me that March begins like a lamb and out like a lion.
Oh yeah.
Like they just like force that down my throat.
Yep.
So I don't trust March. Um, Anytime it's March and we have a nice day, I'm like, yeah, but
Well, between lions and lambs and groundhogs, we're full of furry animals.
yeah, we live in God's creation. It's
There you
great.
go.
It's um this Sunday, this last Sunday, the 22nd of February, it was the fourth Sunday sermon, and I pulled a question from our young, intrepid young woman named Jocelyn Atanga. She had a great question, and I was really excited to kind of tackle this topic. So, the question that she asked, that she wrote down on the little slip of paper and put in the box, was: is it bad to be a Presbyterian and go to Catholic Mass every Thursday for school? And I chose to answer that question with the story of Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman at the well, which comes to us from the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verses 1 through 26. And I'll read that now so we can all be on the same page. Now, Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews did not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God, and who it is who asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as also did his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water, so I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." He told her, "Go, call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is that you have had 5 husbands, and the man you are with now is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true." "Sir," the woman said, "I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshippers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, and his worshippers must worship in spirit and in truth." The woman said, "I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one who is speaking to you, I am he." So that scripture passage, I think when I started reading it to answer Jocelyn's question, people might have been a little confused because the beginning of it might not speak directly to what she's talking about, but I was focusing on that last part, specifically in 21, where Jesus says that thing about true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, and focusing on spirit and truth. What does that mean? What does that mean for us and our daily worship practices, and how it is that we engage with things that are different, things that may be not a part of our tradition, things that may be, so to speak, against our tradition, and tried to kind of approach it that way. So, Mike, what thoughts did you have?
Well,
What came to you?
there's a few things that came out of the message on Sunday, answering the question. I mean, first of all, it was a brave question because you're doing something, and as you mentioned in your message, you're doing something, and what if the answer was, yeah, that's bad. You shouldn't be doing that. You're putting yourself out there. But that's one take from it is finding a safe place to be able to to ask those questions,
Right, right.
to be able to find people or a place where you know what I don't have all the answers, but I'm in a safe place. I can ask this question and get a real answer.
Mm-hmm.
That was one. I think in the how do I worship part, I think came down to somewhere. I think you mentioned is worship connected to God.
Mm.
So how do we do that? If we're in a place. I mean, I was a Catholic, I guess. I was Catholic by birth, I guess, by family. I think we were kind of a Christmas, Easter kind of thing. I remember those. I remember some CCD classes on Wednesday nights.
Mhm.
But I wasn't. I really didn't know a lot. Went away
Right.
from religion, and came back as Presbyterian, I guess. So,
Catholics make great Presbyterians.
Catholics make great friends. Well, we got a lot of them. So, I think that is is the worship connected to God is a good question to ask yourself when you're sitting there, and you should ask yourself of that anytime that you're at a place of worship or in a place of worship. It's just not at church. We go to conferences, we go to other places where is God present? Is He? Are we doing what God wants us to do at that time? Are we speaking as a connection to God? I think that was a message, and I think the other message that I think came across very strong in your sermon was inclusion. Um, and in today's world, I'm not going to get political here, but in today's world, um, that's a concept I think that gets, I don't want to say lost, but it has a tough time showing through. And you understand the relationship between Samaritans and Jews back in that day.
Mhm.
They were not supposed to be talking. They're not supposed to be interacting. They're not supposed to have a relationship. And here, Jesus Christ is, asking, this woman having a conversation, and she knows what the place is. I mean, she says right there, you should not be talking to me, or
Right.
we shouldn't be talking. And his, his idea or his ideal is inclusion. Everybody, can come to God. Don't matter whether you're Samaritan, Jew, Gentile, whatever. This is, you can come. And I think that's, a message that we have to or should be remembering today, more than more than some other times, but is inclusion. And that to me, that part of your message came through pretty loud and clear.
And I think what I was trying to get at was being wary of the opposite of inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Like so many things that we're a part of and that we try to build up and follow end up being kind of adversarial to other competing
Mm-hmm.
ideas. Are you a part of Kiwanis Club or Lions Club? Are you a part of um, Boy Scouts or
Right.
Great Adventures? It's these different groups that do very similar things. Um, don't have to be so adversarial. And can be helpful to one another. And certainly, we who worship God appreciate others who are worshiping
Mm-hmm.
God. Um, Actually, it's kind of funny because in the Bible study that we're doing right now, we were talking about how the book that we're reading, written by Walter Brueggemann, he was talking about, I don't understand why we have wasted so much time on Christian versus Jew idea. Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, they're waiting for the Messiah,
Right.
and we're waiting for the Messiah.
Right.
We're all waiting for the Messiah. The only difference is, has he been here one time or two?
Right. Right. Right.
But the thing we're focused on is waiting.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that is kind of brilliantly put.
Well, and I think sometimes that we, between the different religions, whether it be, Baptist, Presbyterian, Catholic, Protestants, so far, is sometimes it's in the technicalities
Mm.
of what the beliefs are. Are we all grounded in the same thing, but we have little idiosyncrasies that are different. Um, how sometimes those get in our way.
Well, and disagreeing with something might preclude you from worshiping with somebody,
Right.
but I think doesn't preclude you or doesn't lead you to hate somebody.
Right.
I can't get behind theologically communion, the body and the bread being actually Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
like the Catholics believe.
Right.
I don't think they're ruining it.
Right. Right.
I like, yeah, that's kind of the key to Jocelyn's question is, and the key to what you were talking about on being mindful of the worship that's happening in that space. And I really appreciate what you said just a few minutes ago, because I feel like we are supposed to and we are called to have our life be an entire worship to God.
Mm-hmm.
And if what you're doing isn't, you got to ask yourself, well, then what am I doing here?
Right.
And yeah, it gets tied up when you're working on budget sheets and stuff. How is this worshipful to
Right.
God? And it's like, well, I think it is. He talks a lot about being a
Yeah.
good steward, about showing those kind of
Right.
things. What's not worshipful to God is excluding people,
Right.
is knowing that you're pushing other people down, is um, doing things that you hate yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And being a part of them. After worship, Jessica talked to me about how she had gone to a church one time with a friend of hers, and the person who was leading worship was talking about some self-help book. She couldn't recall what it
Mhm.
was, but they were basically promoting this book
Right.
by talking about how it can help you, what it can do, and things of that nature. And she said, I feel like years ago we finished that service and I felt, what just happened?
That was an
What was I
infomercial.
doing? And she's like, I feel like now you've given me the words to say, that's fine, but it wasn't worship.
Right, right, right.
And hence watching out for that, trying to not involve yourself too deeply in that place.
Well, and I think that that's exactly right. And I think that sometimes I remember a time on session, and this is years back, and discussing I think it was a baptism of somebody that wasn't in the church. And it was a discussion. I mean, it was a long discussion of whether we shouldn't, kind of, and you kind of get caught up in that conversation and walked away really confused and, you know, just really took some time, to think through. And it's like, what are we doing? But why does it matter? This person should be baptized. Does it really matter where they're from if they want to be baptized? And we do get caught up in the business of a church.
Yeah, yeah. We want to protect the integrity of
Right.
things and the message that we're sending out. Like the follow-up message, the follow-up question is, you're not a member here, and I'm guessing they didn't want to be a member there because of
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah. Sure.
Otherwise, it wouldn't really be a
It would have
discussion.
been a
You make them
question,
a
right?
member.
Right.
Um, and then the next question is, why? Um, what do you want to do?
Right.
Does that stop you from baptizing?
Right.
No,
It shouldn't.
it shouldn't. But I ran across the same thing when I was working as a chaplain at a hospital. I was the chaplain for the NICU unit, and the nurses in the NICU unit don't like to see chaplains
No.
because they called us the angel of
Oh.
death. Because we get called,
Right.
something has gone wrong. Well, I got called, and I go up to a woman's room, and she has a baby right there, and um, she says, you have to baptize my child. And I'm there, I'm in seminary at the time, I'm not ordained.
Okay.
I'm looking at this baby, and I know theologically, I'm like, I feel like if I baptize this child, I might be communicating to the mother, you need to be baptized,
Hmm.
otherwise you're going to hell, or whatever complicated thing that she
Right.
thinks. And then I thought for just a second, and I was like, she needs to know that her baby is loved, will be in heaven, will be watched over by God. I can do this.
Right.
And I picked up the baby. I used the fountain, like the sink, and I said, I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the baby died right there in my arms. And
Wow.
and I was like, that was one of the most spiritual, powerful moments I've ever experienced in my life. And the mother, I went and saw her again the next day and tried to have a conversation, letting her know, had I been late, had
Mm.
uh, it not worked out, God would have loved
Right.
and watched over this child. And there was time for that conversation later.
Right. Right.
What is the time now?
Hmm.
Oh, it's time to worship now.
Right.
And that's what she had to focus on
Right.
and be focused in. And I think that is what Jesus is getting at when he's talking about worshiping in spirit and in
Hmm.
truth. Um, it's Lent now, so I've noticed a few of the restaurants in town have their Lenten
Oh
menu.
yeah. On Tap has their Lenten menu out.
Oh, there you
So
go.
I give a plug for where I work. Yes, we do. We have our fish of all varieties out.
Ooh, nice. Fish tacos?
Fish tacos.
Fish
Yep, we have
tacos
fish
are excellent.
tacos.
Excellent.
Yep.
I don't know why I like
You're
fish
bad at
tacos
fish.
so much, but I go for it. But it always kind of makes me laugh isn't the right word, but wonder, do the people who follow these things, Catholics probably, um, do they know why?
Wow, that's a
How
good
or
question.
why are we worshiping God through eating fish?
Through fish. Yeah.
How are fish a vehicle for worship? And that, I think, goes back to the spirit of truth thing, because I don't think it's just for when we are other places doing different things.
Right.
I think we should look at our own practices and say, how is this worshipful? What am I doing with this process? We have so many traditions that are older than anything that I can think of. I
Very
was going to
old.
say older than sin, but that's not true.
That's been pretty old. It's pretty
Sin,
old.
yeah, it beats that out. But sometimes we have these things because we always have, and that's fine. And I'm a big fan of tradition and how it informs us. But is it informing us?
Right.
Is it growing our relationship? Is it being used as an act of worship?
Right.
It doesn't even have to be used as an act of worship the way it was intended.
Right.
But is it being used?
Right. Well, I've struggled with the whole, Lent idea, and I think one of the first questions you did on the fourth Sunday was, "Why do we give stuff up for Lent? What's the purpose?"
I
You
think
know,
your complete question was, why do we give it up when we're just going to pick it back up again?
yes, exactly. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, I'm going to give up, beer for Lent, but on Easter, where's that Bud Light at? I don't understand. It's just been again, to me, is it's just a tradition. Is just what's the concept of, why are you doing it? Are you just doing it because you have always given up something at Lent? For a while, I added stuff. I did a study, or I did picked one of the Gospels and read through it and did a study of that, or picked up a Lenten devotional or whatever and did that. So kind of added instead of subtracting. I'm not sure that's much different than just giving something up, because I'm not sure what the purpose of doing that was. But we do get into traditions, and sometimes I'm not sure what it adds to our worship. What it adds to, because like you said, our worship just isn't on Sunday. Our worship should be throughout the week. And I know I don't always get there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't. Sometimes I need Sunday to remind me of what I'm supposed to be doing the rest of the
Uh-huh.
week. But when we get into some of these traditions, it's like, okay, why? Why eat fish on Friday? Why give up something on Lent? During Lent or whatever. You know.
Yeah, I mean, the entire tradition of fasting is a slippery slope, because the heart of it is you use the scarcity, the lack, to remind you to refocus on God. So you give up beer. You go to reach for a beer during the season of Lent. You're supposed to think to yourself, ah, I should pray, or am I involved in a worshipful life? How Sunday
Right.
is a refresh, strengthening. Fasting is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to work that way. So you're not even supposed to give up bad things.
Right.
You're supposed to
Well,
give up
exactly.
something that reminds you. Like, your question kind of suggests that by giving this up, I have done better. So why don't I give it up all the
All
time?
right.
Well, then it won't remind you of anything if you do that kind of thing. But the it's about reorienting yourself back to worship, back to focusing, back to prioritizing your relationship, of growing your relationship with God. Um, and the same thing that eating fish is supposed to do. All those things can work that way. Um,
It didn't work so well when I gave up lima beans for Lent, because I never reached for them throughout Lent. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It yeah. You end up liking that so much you just keep
Yes,
that
just
practice
keep it
all the year
going.
long. I love you
I
so much, God.
I don't. I'm just gonna give them up forever.
That's how much I love you. Yeah, yeah. We talked about this a little bit earlier on about the inclusive nature of things. And um, going back to that, I was curious what you thought about what I said about um, if we're following the Spirit, the issue that I would take with my knowledge of the Catholic Church isn't their specific practices, isn't
Mhm.
even transubstantiation of the elements of communion. My issue is the lack of inclusiveness with the communion table, that you have to be a member of the Catholic Church in order to participate at all in communion. How did that hit for you? Did
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I was at both services, so I got extra reminder of what I'm supposed to do through the week. But I noticed in both services, you told a story about I think it was Washington, Seattle, Washington, or something when you were,
yeah,
and there was a Catholic church and a Presbyterian church, and on Good Fridays you alternated. Were you specifically part of that, or was that
I was not. It was
okay?
a
Was
professor in seminary told
okay.
me that story.
So the story was that they alternated, Good Friday
Hmm.
from year to year,
Hmm.
and at each location, everybody took communion until a bishop stepped
Till
in and
yeah,
said, "Yeah, you can't do that." Now, one thing I noticed, you got a little fired up, got a little fired up there when you were going through that story. As the story was going through, I noticed both times it's like, okay, this is really like sticking in him because he's a little fired up when he's telling the story, So asking you, what drives that? Just is it the exclusion altogether?
yeah. I like to think of myself, I guess you can tell me if I'm wrong, as a pretty easygoing guy. Like I don't let a
Well,
lot of
till you
things.
get to fantasy football, then you're not so easy going. But I'll go with easy going.
I was easygoing until this year, but well, I don't like drama. I don't like
Right.
things that get people all uppity. I don't like to sit on those kind of things. But if you want one thing that'll drive me up the wall, it's telling someone they're not welcome, telling someone they're not good enough.
Hmm.
Communion, especially, because I think the entire practice of communion is a lesson in how we're invited,
Right.
how we have a place established for us, and there are no prerequisites. Jesus shared communion, Judas was there,
Right. Yep.
and I'm like,
How do you
he
forget
didn't
that?
he didn't ask him to leave.
No.
He didn't
Can
say
you step out for a second? We got something to do. You need to come back in.
right. And so any type of exclusion, but specifically in areas where we're specifically talking about the inclusion
Mhm.
into God's family, into what earns you the place in God's love, just drives me up the wall, and I get so angry so fast. I think that's one of the failings of the church in our history, is the constant badgering of people to change who they are so that they can be loved. I think it goes the other way.
Right.
Love changes you,
Hmm.
and I don't need you to exhibit a certain practice or dress slash be a certain way.
Hmm.
I think once you understand love, your life changes after that. And it's an ongoing thing. So yeah, to answer your question, I do get pretty angry.
You're getting a little fired up there.
Well, if I mean, again, I don't want to rest on political things, but it's like if years ago there was talk about putting out a registration for Muslims in our country, and I remember after that I talked to our session, and I was at a different church at the time. I talked to the session of that church, and I said, we're going to have a conversation, because if this comes to pass, you guys are going to have to figure out or how to tell people why your pastor is a Muslim. Because I was going to register as such, saying this is just completely unfair.
Well, that would have been interesting.
That would have been an interesting conversation, yes. Um, so yeah, anybody's welcome. Anybody can be a part of it. All people are loved. Those are the bedrocks that my
Mhm.
entire faith experience is built on.
There's a song, I was just looking it up, that the praise team does here, and it's called "Come to the Table." Um, and in the one of the, I think it's the bridge, and what it does is it sings through all the people that are welcome. The rich, the poor, and it just keeps going back and forth. Throughout that refrain, and just the people that are lost, the people that are found. And when I watched the video for this song, it shows a table, and as the song goes on, different people are coming to the table. You got a businessman coming to the table, and then at the end, all these different people are sitting at the same table, and they're from all walks of life, from everywhere. And he just shows the inclusion. Anybody can come to this table.
Mhm. I think if I were to follow up this particular sermon, there would be two specific things that I'd want to do with it. A, I feel like the call on us to seek out the spirit and truth in worship, it sounds, especially to us, like a very individual thing. And I think I would preach another sermon about watching out for that,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to sit in church on Sunday morning and ask yourself, does this feel like spirit and truth? Because I think it's easy, just as an individual, to get confused and say, is this spirit and truth versus do I like this?
Right.
Is this my way of doing it?
Right.
And those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've told many people when I came here, one of the big changes was a contemporary worship
Mm-hmm.
service, because every church I've ever served, all traditional. And um, and the thing that I found was really helpful in getting into the vibe of contemporary worship was just watching the band play,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody who's playing, different skill levels, different accomplishments, different goals, and why they're there and what they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to accomplish. But each and every one of you, I sense your earnest worship
Mm-hmm.
in what you're doing. Like,
Right.
I'll pick on Eddie for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Watching Eddie play drums is a worship
Oh, yeah.
experience. And I could really care less if you think drums are a part of worship
Right.
or not,
Mm-hmm.
if you like them as part of your music or not.
Right.
Worship is happening.
Right.
And so that's different from that kind of thing. And that's where I think the community aspect comes in,
Mm-hmm.
being able to talk to and listen to and even just watch other people worship. The whole do you put your hands in the air when you're worshiping, old
Yeah.
cliche. It's like, I don't
Yeah.
care.
Right. Do what you
I
do.
don't.
Right.
And if you're fine that I don't, and I'm fine that you
Right.
do, I don't see a problem.
Yeah. But we have this stigma, and maybe it's from when we were little, of how you're supposed to act in church.
Right,
And you really have to get, as a from a personal level, you have to get through that.
right,
You know, it's just so. I mean, it's drilled into you. From a young age, when you're going, this is how you're supposed to act.
yeah,
And that's not, again, it goes back to, I don't think God's worried about about whether your hands are up or down or whatever. Are you worshiping?
right.
Are you there to worship? Not necessarily what you're wearing, what you're listening to, what you're, you
Oh
know.
yeah, since I started, I've always tried to encourage people to be what they are in
Mhm.
the worship space. Um, like, I don't yell if kids run around and they're all
Right.
noisy, because I'm like, my key for how worship should go is I've been to Thanksgiving get-togethers with a whole family,
Oh yeah,
and it is lovely chaos
chaos.
is the word I like on it. And if we are the family of God,
Yep,
shouldn't it resemble that to a certain
yep,
extent?
yep.
So, yeah. Again, if you want to trigger me, have somebody tell someone to be quiet in a worship service, and I'll be like, oh, no, you didn't.
No, you did not just say that.
The other follow up for the service is the responsibility that we have to adhere to and try to follow the goals and the practice in the worship service. It's like we were talking about the inclusion aspect. Everybody's welcome to the table, and it's the love part that changes you. But the love part really should change you. And again, to pick on the example of what type of music is happening in the space, if it bothers you so much that you can't be a part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and you've tried to talk to other people and other people see the worship in it and those kind of things, I feel like there's an aspect where you're there for the wrong thing.
Right.
You're there to be entertained, or you're there because it's your responsibility, or you're there to I don't know, accomplish a goal of some
Mm-hmm.
type. And I question if you were actually worshiping in that space, if changing the changing the routine, changing the parts of the worship throw you off so much that you're angry
Right.
or vengeful because
Mm-hmm.
of those kind of things. So that would be the three-part sermon. A, worship in spirit and truth. B, worship in spirit and truth does not mean worship the way I want to do it. And C, learning how to worship another way
Right.
is glorifying to God.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the way you grew up, it's the way that God calls you to
Right.
worship in a new way each and every day. And there's so much potential there.
Well, and I think that's where you get through the rest of the week. Yes, we have a way, or on Sunday you're in church and this is how it's done. But that's not how it's done during the rest of the week. I'm not sitting there in church with a bunch of people and you know have somebody give me a message, and that's not what happens the rest of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Worship is different the rest of the week, and you got to be open to that and see where those opportunities are, those times are that you can worship. And sometimes, man, life gets in the way. I mean, it just gets busy, and by the time you turn around, it's Sunday again. And it's like, well, we'll try next week. Let's see if we can do a little bit better next week, God. Okay.
Well, and take what you saw in worship. If communion is central to your idea of worship, then how many meals are you sharing,
Right.
and how worshipful is that space
Mm-hmm.
in other parts of the week? I personally have had experiences that I found to be more worshipful than celebrating communion in a sanctuary,
Yeah.
where I was telling somebody the other day, when Jessica's entire family came to town and we had Christmas dinner,
Mm-hmm.
my parents were invited. We were all around the table. It was crazy. There
Mm-hmm.
was food everywhere. Maybe it helps that I made brisket. I don't know.
So you
Um,
were why there was food everywhere.
anyways, we're sitting there at the table, and I felt like through conversation, through the jokes, through the craziness of it all, I was like, wow, God is a part of
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah.
And I feel loved. I
Mm-hmm.
feel grateful. I feel worshipful.
Yep.
And so communion is a teaching method for the other
Right. Right.
times. And if you're really stressed out, this is my pitch for you. If you're really stressed out during the week, invite somebody to lunch and just talk, just laugh,
Mm-hmm.
just share a
Yep.
moment of peace and love with somebody else, and it might put you back on
Yep.
track.
Well, and I think that's really that's important, and I think that's goes back to the safe place. You know,
Exactly.
you have those people that you can just get together with, whether it's over a meal, whether it's just getting together or just an impromptu visit or whatever, and just being able to talk. And and those are the people you can ask those questions of, hey, just what do you think of this? And you're not being judged by what,
Right.
what you're asking. And I think that's where I think the question comes from, and the bravery in that question
Mm-hmm.
is knowing that she wasn't going to be judged by what she was asking.
Well, and I hope she knows.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said in the sermon, I've had a fourth Sunday sermon box for the last 8 years of my career,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never once had someone take something they're doing and say, "Is this bad?"
Right.
Um, Maybe she's a child and she was naive and didn't consider that,
Yeah.
but really just wanted to know.
Right.
Either way, I hope it does open the door to people feeling safe
Mm-hmm.
in that space, that we take questions seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe communion teaches us to invite a couple more people to that table than maybe we have deemed as safe people.
Right.
That there are other safe people.
Mm-hmm.
We just haven't sat with them yet.
Right. Just haven't been invited to the table yet.
Not your particular table,
Right.
anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else, Mike? Any
Um, no, I think we pretty much touched on all the things that I had written down from Sunday.
All right. Well, we do want to give a shout out and applause for Jocelyn for
Mm-hmm.
supplying the question, for bringing this great thing up. I have literally, since I preached this, I think 10 former Catholics in the church have approached me individually and said, um, thanks, I really
Right.
needed to hear that. And so, Jocelyn, the trueness of the fourth Sunday sermon box comes where if you're asking a question, I almost guarantee you're not the only
You're not
one.
the only one, right?
And I hope it encourages people to write in questions. And yeah,
Now, just in case the answer got lost in all of our discussion, the answer is no, you're not doing anything wrong. Right.
nope, you are not bad
Right.
for participating in a Catholic worship
There
service.
you
Um, well, thanks, Mike,
go.
again
Okay.
for a wonderful conversation. What a great time to spend together, and we'll see you again 2 weeks from
Yep,
now.
couple weeks. All right. Sounds good.
All right, well, take care and God bless.
Thanks.